It seems impossible for such an innocent cartoon like Peppa Pig to have censored or altered episodes. But guess what? It's totally possible. If you think otherwise, you're completely mistaken. Did you know that depending on where someone lives, an episode of Peppa Pig can be completely different from what's shown in other parts of the world?
Ho ho!
For example, there's one episode that was completely banned in Australia. Kids in the land of Bluey hardly get to watch it, and the reason actually makes a lot of sense: hairy spiders. In the episode Mr. Skinny Legs, Peppa and George are playing with Peppa's dollhouse. So far, so good. But when Peppa insists that her little brother should help make tea, George goes to the bathroom to fetch some water. That's when he finds a huge spider and brings it into the room where the Pig family kids are playing. Peppa gets scared and calls for Daddy Pig, who also gets scared and asks for Mommy Pig's help. In the end, they all become friends with Mr. Skinny Legs, everyone except the Australian government, which absolutely hated the episode. That's because, in the land of Bluey, spiders are extremely dangerous creatures, especially for kids. The authorities didn't want young viewers to think it was okay to approach spiders in real life, so they decided to ban the episode completely. But don't worry, nobody's getting banned here. Today, we're bringing you 10 more Peppa Pig scenes in the episodes that have been altered in different countries. Welcome to another episode of Sin a Wave. Who would have thought that our little piglet could become a criminal mastermind? Well, at least that's what happened in China. Back in 2018, the Chinese government didn't just ban a single episode, they blocked the entire show due to a rather serious issue in the country. Some groups of shady individuals started getting Peppa Pig tattoos all over their bodies. These law-breaking groups engaged in bad behavior and spread their antics online. When younger audiences saw images of Peppa Pig as a tattoo, the Chinese authorities feared it could create confusion among kids watching the show. Because of that, Peppa Pig was completely banned in China, which was a huge loss for the show's creators. After all, China has a massive fan base. Fortunately, after about a year of being unavailable, the show made its way back to Chinese audiences. It's pretty incredible how this little piglet can influence all sorts of people, don't you think? You might not know this, but there are some very serious and important safety rules for playgrounds. But don't worry, the creators of Peppa Pig didn't know them either. The episode The Playground had to be modified in several countries, including the UK, where the show actually originated because the story was a bit too intense. In the episode, almost all of the show's characters are at the city playground, having fun on the seesaw, slide, and swings. But some dangerous things happen. Peppa gets stuck inside a tire, George is pushed way too hard on the swing, and the kids use the slide only to jump straight onto Daddy Pig's belly. This kind of behavior could be dangerous because kids might think it's okay to jump on people's stomachs. But it's not. That could lead to serious injuries. On top of that, Switzerland outright banned the episode because, in the country, children as young as George's age aren't even allowed to play in playgrounds without supervision. So the show's creators had to tweak the episode and add adult characters inside the playground to make sure the kids were being watched. Playgrounds are fun for kids, but without adult supervision, they can be risky. Do you prefer playing on the swings or the seesaw? Comment with #fun so we can get to know each other and hang out during school breaks. Remember the Creek episode from Bluey? It wouldn't have worked without Bandit being there. Well, in Peppa Pig, there's an episode that once again made Australia change the storyline, and if the creators had seen the creek, they'd understand why. In the episode Tallgrass, the pig family's backyard is completely overgrown, and Peppa and George decide to run into the tall grass to play hide and seek. That's a big no-no. Australia was really concerned about the idea of kids running off into tall grass to play because they could get lost or be attacked by dangerous creatures like snakes, scorpions, disease-carrying rodents, and other hidden threats. They could even fall into a hole and get seriously hurt. Playing in wild areas wouldn't be a problem if Daddy Pig had been there watching over them, just like Bandit does with Bluey, Bingo, and Mackenzie. But since Peppa and George were completely alone, the episode was entirely removed from the list of stories available to Australian audiences. What could possibly go wrong in a simple gym class? Everything, if you're naked. In the episode where Peppa and her friends go to the gym to learn how to exercise and stay healthy with Grandpa Rabbit, Madame Gazelle asks the little ones to put on their gym clothes. Pedro is the only one not wearing the proper outfit, but there was actually someone else in the group who should have thought twice about their choice of fabric. Susie Sheep is a character completely covered in white wool, right? No problem there, until you actually watch the episode and notice something shocking. The children's gym clothes are the exact same color as Susie's fur, and because of that, it looks like the little sheep is completely naked. Now, there's one episode so problematic that nearly every country in the world forced the creators to change it. In the episode Bicycles, Peppa and George leave the house to meet their friends and have fun riding their bikes. So far, so good. You know that Peppa's town is full of very steep hills, right? Well, in this episode, the kids decide to race downhill to a pumpkin that Daddy Pig had planted. So what's wrong with that? Simple. None of the kids are wearing helmets while racing down those dangerously steep hills at high speed. When the episode aired, almost every country in the world demanded that the creators redraw the scene to add helmets to the children's heads. Every country except Brazil, which didn't seem too concerned at first. But nowadays, Brazil has also fixed this issue, and you can see that in the online versions of the Bicycles episode, which have been updated in all languages. Some parts of the original episode can still be found online, but watching them isn't exactly recommended. The creators really messed up by making a story where kids race bikes without any protection. That can lead to serious accidents. You know what else can be dangerous? Forgetting to turn on notifications or subscribe to the channel. Better fix that ASAP. Now we have to talk very quietly because this next moment is a little sensitive. In the episode Grandpa Pig's Chickens, Peppa and George spend the night at their grandparents' house. That's when Grandpa Pig shows them his vegetable garden. He has carrots, peas, and, well, he thought he had lettuce, but the birds were so hungry that they ate all of it. Grandpa Pig gets so frustrated that he calls the birds stupid. But in the United States, this line had to be changed because people there felt that teaching kids the word stupid would be too inappropriate. Instead, the word was replaced with something like silly birds. Of course, the rest of the world didn't see this as such a big deal, but it's interesting to know that a single word was censored. The Families episode was another one that had to be modified. In this story, Madame Gazelle asks her students to draw pictures of the people who live in their homes. But one character ended up causing controversy in Russia and Italy. Penny Polar Bear, a friend of Peppa who was introduced in season 7, was the reason behind it. While all the kids were talking about their families, Penny drew a picture of herself with her 2 moms. The little bear lives with 2 female polar bears. This episode was censored in Russia and Italy, not due to prejudice, but because, according to authorities in these countries, children were too young to understand what the show was trying to convey. Some episodes from the early seasons of Peppa Pig had to be modified for safety reasons. One example is the episode Polly Parrot, where Peppa and George meet their grandparents' pet. In one scene, Peppa is in the car with her parents on the way to her grandparents' house, but it's hard to tell if the younger characters are actually wearing seatbelts. Some countries requested that from that point on, whenever Peppa, George, or any child character was inside a car, the show should make it very clear that they were wearing seatbelts. From this episode onward, you can see that Peppa and her friends always have their seatbelts fastened whenever they're riding in a car. It really seems like the creators of Peppa Pig don't understand that in Australia, this whole idea of spiders being our friends just isn't going to work. In the episode Spiderweb, Daddy Pig is busy working in his office when the whole family approaches him, complaining that the house is a mess because there are spider webs everywhere. Mommy Pig asks him to get rid of them, but Daddy Pig says he actually likes spiders because they eat flies. That's when Mrs. Skinnylegs returns to the show, scaring Mommy Pig, not once, but twice. When Daddy Pig finally gives in and takes Mrs. Skinnylegs outside, it starts raining. And that's when Peppa begins singing the famous nursery rhyme about the spider trying to climb up, only to be washed away by the rain. The entire episode is shown in a super cute way, showing Daddy Pig casually picking up the spider with his hands like there's nothing wrong with it. But that's actually a huge problem in Australia. The next day, Daddy Pig gets ready to go to work, but he can't take the car because the spider has spun a web all over Mr. Pig's vehicle. Peppa then says it wouldn't be a good idea to leave the spider without a home. The problem is that this episode tries to send the message that it's okay to have spider webs inside the house and that picking up spiders with your hands is completely safe. We've already explained that for Australians, spiders can be extremely dangerous, so there's no way this episode could air in the country without some form of censorship. In fact, this isn't a great idea anywhere, but Australia was the only country that actually took this issue seriously, which is why the episode was completely banned there. Of course, these changes don't really affect your experience as a fan watching the adventures of the world's most famous little pig, and if you want to keep seeing more analyses like this, we've got 2 more videos lined up for you. See you in the next video. Catch you later!